Hi, Phil Simborg here with a fun position. What I love about this position, it was sent in by one of my students at a different score in a match, and I'll get to that in a minute, but I'm looking at this from the standpoint of an unlimited game or money game with blue holding a 2 cube and red on roll, and red with a 5-4 to play. And what I find so interesting about this position is not necessarily what's the right play, but what's the process to get to the right play? How do you decide what the right play is here? Obviously, you've got a few choices here. You could play the 4 here and the 5 to the ace point and not leave any direct shots and just leave a 7. A second play would be to move this checker to the 7 point and leave only a 2 shot. And a third play would be to move from the 13 to the 4, making a good board but leaving more shots. All three of those plays have merit. There are pluses and minuses to all, and no play is good or bad in a vacuum. Every play is only good or bad in comparison to the other plays that you could make instead of that play. So let me just be quiet for a moment and you can take a look at this and try and figure out which of those 3 plays you would do. Or maybe a 4th play. There is a 4th play. You can bring 2 checkers down. You could bring the 5 to here and the 4 to here and leave lots of shots intentionally. I can tell you pretty quickly that's wrong to leave them dozens of shots and leave it wide open like that. But really the 3 plays I gave you are the 3 that make the most sense. So give it a little thought. You can pause the recording too if you want to take more time before you go on with the recording and see what I have to say about it. Okay, I ruled out the leaving lots of shots and coming down to here and giving him all kinds of numbers. I ruled out going to the ace point because it's just against my religion. I was raised to believe that it's the game lasts longer than just the next roll, and you could end up getting hit with a 7 anyway and then feeling really stupid that you've got that checker out of play on your ace point. So we really narrowed it down to 2 plays. Do you move this checker here and leave him the fewest shots, or do you make your board and leave more shots? Well, again, I think the really exciting thing about this position for me is how do you come to the right decision? How do you decide which of the 2? There's pluses and minuses of both. Of course, there's a real advantage to this play. Let's see what it looks like. You only get hit with 11 shots, and when you don't get hit, you're more likely to come home and bring this game home and win. The problem is when you don't get hit, you still are not home free. You have to safety this checker, and you might do that with a 7. With a 6, which happens 17 times. But then you're leaving an indirect shot here. You might lift this checker, which often happens, but then you still are potentially leaving indirect and possibly direct shots later. And when you leave those shots later, he's less likely to have, he's certainly not going to have these blots in the outfield. He might even have another point made in his board, and it could be worse to get hit later. However, this probably does bring the game home a little sooner and safer. Let's take a look at the other play. The other play, the first question I ask is, of course it's better to have a much better board here. If we do get into a hitting exchange, I would certainly like to have a 5-point board instead of a 4-point board with a blot. So there's a clear advantage in that area. But how many more shots am I leaving? That's the first thing you need to do. You need to be able to count shots here. Well, you get hit with all 1s. That's 11 numbers. And you get hit with all 8s. And that's 6 numbers. So that's 17 numbers. And there were no duplications. There is no 1 in any of the numbers that hit this number. That's 17 numbers. You also get hit with a 6-5. That's 19 numbers as opposed to 11 numbers. So you're getting hit 7 more times. Well, that's about 18-19% more often that you're going to get hit. What about when you don't get hit? What about the 17 numbers that don't hit you? Well, of course, double 6s don't hit you and double 4s don't hit you, and those are 2 pretty good rolls for him for the race. Double fives doesn't hit. I'm sorry, double four does hit. That's right. That's one of the hitting numbers. I meant double six and double five are both very good for the race. So in addition to the 19 numbers that hit you, he's got two good racing numbers. And then he's got several numbers that just make a point or clean up here and don't hit. And you still have to bring these checkers home. But this is a lot easier to bring home safely than if you had two checkers left on your 13 point. So if you don't get hit, this is easier to bring home safely. What if you do get hit? There's going to be a lot of return shots if you do get hit, and if you get hit now, it certainly is going to be less harmful than getting hit later, when you're very likely to leave shots later. As a matter of fact, you've got a lot of return shots. If he hits you with a 1, first of all, you need to understand how he's going to play his 1. 1 what? 1 6, 1 5, 1 4, 1 3, double 1, so on. Double 1's a gorgeous number. He hits and makes a 6 point. 1 2 he hits and probably covers. I'm sure he covers his 7 point. 1 3 he hits and safeties this checker. 1 4 he hits and safeties one of these checkers. 1 5 he hits and safeties a checker. 1 6. So most of the time when he hits the 1, he's safetying a checker. You don't have a lot of return shots, but he still has to bring these two checkers around. You're going to come in most of the time, and sometimes you hit back about 8 times, or you'll hit back in combinations. What if he hits with the 8? There is a lot of return shots. As a matter of fact, about half the time, not quite half the time, you hit back, and about half the time, well actually let's be more specific, 16 times you don't come in, and 16 times you hit. I did the counting on this. And the 2 times where you come in and don't hit, that's where you either make this point with a 5-4 or you roll a very benign 6-5. Those are the only 2 numbers, or 4 out of 36, that either don't dance or don't hit. So figure about half the time you're hitting and about half the time you're dancing. When you dance, you lose. He doubles you out. When you hit, you are going to win a tremendous amount of gammon. So even if you got hit with the 8, you're in a 50-50 situation roughly, and the half the time that you lose 2 points, and the half the time that you win, you often win 4 points. That's not so bad to get hit off the 8. So those extra shots that you left, by the 8, which is 6 shots plus the 6-5, the extra 8 shots that you left by leaving this blot are not, it's not the end of the world if it happens. And again, it's not always going to happen. The result is that the right play clearly is to make the point. Let me just show you. It clearly is to make the 4 point. You will win a little bit more simply because it's easier to bring it home, and also because if you get hit now you have so many return shots. But you also win more gammons, and that's going to be a real factor here. Now what complicated this, and by the way, if you don't see this, how this works, and if you can't project the most common variation, that's what I'm talking about when you get hit, are you likely to dance or come in and what happens, then the best way to see this is to play it out. Make one play and hit Control C, which saves the position, and then play it out against the computer, or let the computer play the computer, or play it out against yourself, but play it right and see how often you win and how often you win gammons by making the correct play. Then make the other play, and you'll see how often you're going to be leaving shots. Whether you get hit or not is a matter of just the odds. So you might, when you play it out a few times, you might still get away with it and not get hit, but still you'll see that the odds are you're going to be leaving more shots when you try to, when you only bring this checker here and leave the 2 now, and you'll get hit enough to where you'll still lose the game then. And when you get hit later, when he has another point made, or when these blots are gone, it's not going to be so pleasant to get hit. And don't forget him holding the cube. Okay, so what complicated this is when my students sent this to me, it looked like this. He was leading 2 away, 4 away. but the cube is in the center. And that makes it, to me, even more fascinating. At 2-away, 4-away, I think many players would simply play safely, or the safer play, or not leave a shot at all and play 4 to 5. And by the way, it's still the right play. It's still right to volunteer a shot. Playing 6 to 1 is a 31% error. And the other play of leaving the 2 shot is a 20% error, even at this score. Oh, wait a minute, I've got the score reversed. He was winning 2-away, 4-away. And even there, it's wrong to play very safely. So even though he's winning 2-away, 4-away, we're conditioned at 2-away, 4-away to play like gammon save. And the one who's trailing is conditioned to play more aggressively to go for gammons. That's because we're used to the cube getting turned at some point, and we're afraid that that's going to happen, and that's why we play in that mode. But this cube is at 1. And with the cube at 1, the one who is 2-away really is the one who has more of an incentive to play a volatile game and win gammons. If he wins a gammon, he wins the match. If things go wrong here, red doesn't get gammoned that much. Usually if things go wrong, blue doubles him out because he doesn't have enough gammons. And if on some chance blue hits enough checkers to where there are some gammon chances, and then blue doubles, then red has a drop. So red is probably going to lose 1 point almost all the time he loses, and some of the time he wins 2 points and wins the match. So the fact that the cube is in the center with the gammon value where it is still leads us to play a more volatile game, to take more chances now. This can also be considered in the category of pay now, pay later. You're willing to pay now, pay more now, and give him more shots now, and take more chances on getting hit now, because it's likely to be worse later. It's much more to your advantage to play an open game now, especially when you have a 5-point board versus a 4-point board. There's a huge difference between a 5-point board and a 4-point board. When you get hit and you have to come in on a 4-point board, you're favored to come in. You're going to come in 20 out of 36 times. When you get hit and your opponent has a 5-point board, you're not favored to come in. You're only going to come in 11 out of 36 times. There's a huge difference in the size of just one more point in the board. So all of those things lead you to make the right play here. And again, over the board, you're playing along, and you generally won't take this kind of time to do the analysis, and you need to take this kind of time. This is one of the major things that I'm going to tell you about backgammon. Backgammon, tough plays cannot be made quickly. If you ever watch the experts, when the experts play quickly, that's because they're very sure of the play. It's a reference position for them. They think it's fairly automatic. Even plays that you and I might have trouble with, the top players in the world might get very quickly because they just know that position so well. But you'll see them often take quite a bit of time on tough plays, and especially when they're complicated by the cube and the score. So I hope this was enlightening. Again, not so much to tell you what the right play is here, but to give you an insight into the kind of thought process you need to go through to come up with the right plays. You need to think about the cube, think about the score, think about gammons as well as wins, think about what's likely to happen on the next roll, and that's what we call most common variation, what's most likely to happen on the next roll for him and you if you make one play versus another play, and then try and weigh the risks and rewards. It's actually quite complicated, and it's fun. It's like solving a crossword puzzle. This is the part of the game that I find the most challenging and interesting, even more than some of the cube actions, which can be also very challenging. I hope you enjoyed this little vignette about a play like this, and I want to thank my student for sending this to me. My students are sending me plays every day that challenge me and cause me to think more and improve my game, and thank you for paying me for lessons and teaching me the game and teaching me to think better myself. I really get a double bonus there. And of course the triple bonus is when my students learn and do well and win tournaments and give me a little bit of the credit for it. Of course I take all the credit, but they give me a little bit of credit. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye-bye.